sound check.
Yes, it is a sound check. Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. Got a question from Aki or Aki. Sorry, I don't know how to properly pronounce your name. Hey Roman, big fan of your channel, man. Joined a couple of months ago and have seen each one of your videos. Love them all. Thank you very much, and thank you for spending the time to watch all of them. I had a question in regards to a vintage Rolex model, the Jean-Claude Killy Reference 6036. It is said there are very, very few of these watches around, and wanted to know if you ever had the opportunity to handle one of these pieces. So I'm going to have Ian pop in both the gold and the stainless steel version of the Jean-Claude. Now, Jean-Claude Killy, a lot of people don't even know Jean-Claude Killy for who he is if it wasn't for Rolex, even though he is a very accomplished individual in his own right. He was a very prolific skier in the 60s. I think he's skiing much now. He's much older, but he still sits on the board of directors of Rolex, believe it or not. He won the World Cup twice, and at the age of 25 snatched the Triple Crown. A very, very accomplished French skier. So with being a winner of the Triple Crown, you know, Crown, Rolex kind of goes hand in hand, and it was only right that Rolex took him on as an ambassador and nicknamed their Dato-Compax Chronograph the Jean Killy Rolex. Now the watch itself is famous for its triple calendar that sits at 3, 6, and 9 o'clock, right? Is it a coincidence? You know, Killy, Triple Crown, Triple Calendar. Maybe, you know, nobody really knows for sure. I don't know for sure, but it would seem that way, right? Despite the fact that the Dato-Compax was produced way before Killy's achievements or his time, so because they were doing it from like the 40s through the 60s and stuff. There are still 5 references that are referred to as the Killy Rolex, which is the 4768, 4767, the 5036, the 6036, and the 6236. And these watches are actually among the most complicated ever produced by Rolex, making them very highly thought after by today's collector. And because of their short production run, they are incredibly rare. Funny enough, when Killy was used for their ads and promotions, there's actually no photographic evidence of him ever wearing the watch. I mean, he was spotted wearing an Explorer 2 though, but it is widely assumed Killy owned his own Dato-Compax. While he would wear it and was it photographed, and it is kind of unknown. Have I handled a Jean Killy? Yes, I have. One of my viewers ended up purchasing one, not from me. He purchased it from somebody else, along with a couple of extremely rare pieces. You know who you are, you watch my videos, and he's asked me to have a look at those watches, and I myself, along with the help of another vintage dealer, have a look at the watch inside and out to ensure everything is intact. So yes, I recently have handled this watch. I will tell you this, all the money in that watch is in the dial. You can pick up a gold one, you know, as cheap as $90,000 to $100,000, but if the watch is all correct, and specifically the dial is not either refinished or service dial or things of that nature, that watch can get up and upwards of $400,000 to $500,000. Very rare watch, very iconic watch in Rolex history, so I'm kind of glad you asked me this question and hope this sheds a little bit of light into that. Quick shout out to one of my fans by the name of John Rebick of the Cleveland Coin Expo. Hey Roman, I consider myself a junior watch trader, but primarily focus on coins and paper money, both US and foreign. I feel the heart and soul of the coin industry is a trade show, and with the coronavirus, many shows have canceled or permanently closed. I've managed to find a facility that's opening back up and following state guidelines, so I'm excited to share with you and your viewers that I'm starting a new monthly coin and jewelry show. On a good day, the facility can accommodate over 98-foot tables. However, we're currently limiting to 65 tables to maintain social distancing protocol. I live and breathe coins, but my second love is watches. I hope to grow this show and humbly ask you to share this information. I love your channel and pay particular attention to your trade show videos, as this is something I have too personally learned and grown from. If you have an area, I would love to have you as a vendor or a guest speaker. A lot of people ask me for shout outs and things like that, and I asked the guy, I said, well, what's the story behind it? You know, not so much why should I give you a shout out. I'm always happy to help somebody out there who's trying to build something great and new. And again, maybe once things do clear up a little bit, perhaps I could come out there and either be a vendor or a speaker. I'd be honored to do so. So I asked him for his story, and this is what I really loved. And he said, it all started when my dad took me to my first coin show. I was about 10 years old. He gave me $10 and told me to buy something. I remember it exactly. In 1982, George Washington's silver 50-cent commemorative half dollar. Fast forward to me beginning college and my dad passed away from cancer. That's when my interests were reignited. I frequented all the local shops, shows, joined the local coin club. I became an associate of a local coin and jewelry shop and was their rep and vendor at a local show. The stories, the networking, the sales started to build, and I eventually started to set up my own. Coins, watches, knives. At one point, I was doing 3 shows a month. I slowed down during college with an associate and bachelor degree, then with my career when I met and married my wife, who, by the way, thinks coins are stupid, and we started a family. So with my wife, I do like knives also. She thinks those are stupid. She doesn't think watches are stupid though. Christian and I have 2 kids. Ben is 4 years old and Abby's 10 months. I've been slowly ramping back up, started my own LLC, getting more involved both locally and nationally. The COVID-19 pandemic brought the shows to a halt and some have permanently closed. In a casual conversation, a colleague suggested that I start a show and they thought I would be good at it. I was able to coordinate with a great facility. It is in a great location. And in 2 weeks, I have hit the ground running with calls, advertising, social media, etc. You got to start somewhere. So we'll see how the first show pans out. Thank you for bringing energy to the watch industry. I plan to bring fresh ideas to coin shows, include watches and jewelry, integrate the virtual and physical, and will be what other show promoters watch to get ideas from. Looking forward to meeting you one day. Wishing you all the best. John, I want to wish you best of luck, guys. If you are in the Cleveland area and you're into coins, sounds like there'll be some watches and jewelry there as well. Certainly give him a shout. Ian, if you can put up a link below he made a YouTube video, and also it's clevelandcoinexpo.com. Let's put that up there. John, there's your shout out. Hopefully I get to meet you one day in one of these shows. Here's a email from John. Hey Roman, getting the 5960 tomorrow. Thinking about some of the weird overvalued lots at this past weekend's Phillips auctions. Do you think people were laundering money? If I had 20K of dirty money, I'd put a Rolex up for auction and bid it up. Clean money from the auction house for the price of the seller fees. John. Well, lots of questions in regards to the Phillips auctions and some of the prices that were realized in those auctions. I don't per se know how money laundering works. I don't launder money. Well, occasionally I have to get a 20 in my jeans and they get washed. That's about the extent of money laundering that I do.
Money Laundering 101. Say you come across a suitcase with $5 million in it. What would you buy?
I would imagine it wouldn't be as easy as you put, right? Usually what people tend to launder is cash money, right, from illegal activities. So if somebody out there was, took the $1 million in cash and bought some watches in cash throughout the time and then decided to put them all in auction, it becomes extremely, extremely visible. So I would think that that's not the case here because it's so visible. People know exactly who consigns the watches. People know exactly who the money gets paid out to. The money doesn't exactly get paid out in cash. You get a check or a wire or something. There's some sort of a banking transaction that's involved. So I would imagine it wouldn't be that easy unless you were doing something crooked, 50 years ago, went legit, and then you're just still washing away some of that cash, maybe, right? So definitely a possibility. I think the bigger culprit was the companies themselves that were bidding. If I'm Rolex and there's a huge hype on Rolex and I want to bid up that Rolex, why not do that? Because I think all in, the GMT fetched close to like $22,000 or something like that again. There were other examples of watches that were bid up to astronomical numbers, like the FP Journe Tourbillon and things of that nature. If I'm the guy that has 100 GMTs in stock, and I know guys that have 100 GMTs in stock, and believe me, I tell you, brand spanking new, right? And let's say I bought them up on an average price of, let's say, $14,000 to $15,000. Or even if I bought them up at around the time when they were fetching 17, 18 wholesale, right? When they first came out. Let's say I bought them all up, right? And I'm sitting on 200 of them. Let's do the math. Let's take an average price of $15,000. So $15,000, right, times 200 pieces, you're looking at $3 million invested into these watches, right? And let's say wholesale, the market is 16. With 200 watches, I'm looking to make 200K. And I say to myself, wait a minute. There's one being brought up in auction. An extremely visible auctions house such as Phillips, right, where all dealers and all private collectors tend to look at. Why not just increase the net worth by my entire stock of GMTs by trying to move the needle while using auction house, while using the prominent auction house that I just mentioned, right? So if this watch now fetched $22,000 and that resulted in an increase of a market where the wholesale price on that watch was $16,000 and it went up to just $17,000, that's a $200,000 increase at the cost of roughly $20,000, right? Also a pretty smart move. There are a lot of specialty auctions out there, and I know of big-time collectors, I won't mention any names, where if it's a specific auction sometimes, like a Mega Mania, and they did a while back in Basel, right, where Omega bought out majority of the lots, increasing prices on their own product and popularity and collectability, right? Or let's say there's a Rolex specific auction. I know an auction that took place where there was nothing but day dates, right? And a particular collector that probably has 2,000 day dates in his collection bought 90% of the auction, right? Spending a couple of $1 million. Well, having already invested, say, $25 million into something, why not spend another 2 and increase your collection value from 20 million bucks to 30 million bucks or 25 million bucks? It's a smart move, right? It's kind of like when you buy a stock and let's say it goes down and you kind of buy more in order to average out, right? Well, you can do in reverse just the same, right? You can increase the value of something that you have by buying more at a higher price, creating that particular market. Kind of like I did with the limited offshores that I always talk about, right? I was the guy paying more and more and more for those watches, therefore increasing that initially and then selling them for more and more and more. And that's both of those factors kind of come into play here. So I hope you see where I'm going with this. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the same exact watch. You know, you can choose to increase the value of something that's rare enough or something that's popular enough just by picking and choosing, saying, well, look, I happen to have 20 of these particular day dates that let's say I paid 30 grand for. Let me try to bid this guy up to $65,000, $70,000 because this guy's been kind of lagging. And using major auction houses that are looked at by everybody in the industry and everybody who is anybody in the watch world, as well as all the collectors and customers out there, is a pretty good tool. So I would probably say it's more the latter than money laundering. Hope that sheds a little bit of light into that. Here's a really good question from a gentleman by the name of Jordan A. Roman. Hope you and your family are well and business is good. I found your channel at the start of the UK lockdown when I was furlonged from work. This was in March. I think I'm going to start back at work at some point in July. Well, it is July now, so hopefully you're back to work. I really enjoy watching your videos, have gone back through a lot of your previous videos. I look forward to you starting traveling again and producing your trade show travel vlogs. My history with watches started with a flick-flack watch as my first watch in the 80s, then various Swatch watches in the 90s, and an Adidas watch in the late 90s. After that, I didn't really wear a watch, but have always been interested in them. I remember in the very early 90s going into a Rolex shop in Manchester, my dad buying a Rolex Deja steel and gold two-tone. After this, I always wanted a Rolex. Fast forward to the 2000s, I received a Tag Heuer Carrera CV 2010 steel strap for my 30th birthday. I was choosing between the Tag and Omega Planet Ocean with the orange bezel and steel strap. I know a lot of people would say that Omega would have been the best choice, but as you say, buy what you like, and I love the look of this watch. Early this year, I turned 40, and I was surprised with a Rolex Submariner date reference 11610LN, which is one of my favorite watches, like a true Brit, as per Paul Thorpe's comment.
You go into central London, you throw a stone up in the air, it falls down, then it's going to hit a Submariner because everyone's wearing one.
To say that I was surprised was an understatement. My wife took a picture of me when I opened the box, and the look on my face was like I was holding my son after he was born. This watch means the world to me and will be passed down from me to my son and hopefully continue to be passed on. A great story, by the way. On to my question. I wanted to keep adding watches to my collection and would like to add Daytona for my 50th. Hopefully that milestone doesn't come too soon. I believe a waiting list being 10 years, would I need to put my name down now? And if the watch was available earlier, would I need to buy it as soon as the AD called me? This is something I would have to save up for and wouldn't want to buy if I couldn't afford it. Anyway, thanks for taking the time to read this and keep up the great work. Since being off work, it always seems to be Q&A Tuesday, Jordan. Well, Jordan, I'm going to answer your question very quickly and simply. You should put your name on the list if you're looking to buy that watch at retail and not pay the premiums, right? But let's say you get a phone call 3 years from now, you're not quite ready to purchase that watch. Guess what? That watch is money in the bank and you can flip it and make a profit. I know it sounds terrible, but think about it. Again, I've told you guys before, majority of the time when you buy and sell watches, you're going to lose. So take advantage sometimes on pieces that you can win. And let's say you get that watch at list, and you're able to sell it $5,000 to $6,000 over list, well, guess what? If you're not ready to buy that watch then, use a credit card, buy that watch, resell it, take that $6,000, stash it away in the stock market somewhere for another few years until you're ready to buy the watch. Hopefully that money will grow a little bit as well, and get yourself on another list. And if that watch happens to come in early again, flip it again. But at that point, you'll have yourself a $5,000 to $6,000 cushion. So let's say you don't get another Rolex watch after you sell the first one that you got quicker than you could afford it to. You have that $6,000 cushion, which will allow you to go out in a gray market, buy that same watch, and not pay the premium because you already made that premium on your own. Hope that makes sense. A good question in terms of value and investment and things like that, which, you know, I've answered numerous times, but I think Daryl put an interesting twist to this when he said, "Hey, Roman, simple but rather difficult question to answer, at least to me, given that we are a rather materialistic society, which in turn, of course, contributes to the watch market being as big as it is. How do you separate the idea of buying a watch and ignoring the post-purchase value? While I do not want to look at watches as an investment, it's hard to completely ignore depreciation when buying something of high value. Thank you, and I appreciate your content and insight as always." Such a simple answer. I'm going to give you guys a huge advice. And I've told you numerous times before, in regards to what you buy and how you buy. If you want to save money, get rid of the hit up front by going pre-owned, right? If you're not willing to live with the fact that somebody else wore that watch and you want one brand spanking new, don't walk into an AD and pay full pop for stuff, right? You can buy brand new watches on the internet just the same, because the same ADs wholesale to guys like us, and we in turn discount those watches to you guys, right? But do yourself a favor. When you buy a car, do you not know that a car is going to depreciate in value? And I don't care how cheap or expensive a car you buy. Any brand new car is an expensive proposition, whether it's $20,000 or $120,000. And you know that the minute you drive off that lot, that car is going to lose 20 to 30% of its value. And somehow people are okay with that, even though it's a comparable high value purchase, as you put it, right? Now, you may argue that a car is a tool, a car is a necessity to get you from point A to point B. Unless you live in a really big city, it's often difficult to be without a car, right? So a car is sort of like a must, but you can get out there and buy yourself $1,000 clunkers that will get you from point A to point B. You can buy a moped, right? You can buy an electric bike. There's a lot of things that you can do if we're talking about a necessity of getting around. But at the end of the day, a car, especially a brand new car, is a high value purchase that depreciates in value the minute you drive it off the lot, with a few exceptions, much like with watches, right? There's certain Ferraris that you buy and they go up in value, right? Bottom line is learn to look at that as you look at cars, and you will never think about it that way ever again. Concentrate more on enjoying your car or watch, or what this car might be worth, 3 years from now when you go to sell it. But again, there's wise things that you can do, both in the watches world and the car world. In the car, for example, I never buy a car. I lease all my cars. And the reason I lease all my cars is because overall I look at the amount of money versus what this car is going to be worth 3 years from now, because I like to change my cars often, every 3 years or so. If I know for a fact that I'm not the guy to keep a car for 5, 10, 15 years where I get all the money out of it in terms of usage, and I know I'm somebody that's going to want to switch his cars very often, I'm going to lease a car. So let's do a quick example, right? United States prices versus other countries. I don't know where you are, but it doesn't really matter, right? So a Mercedes with a sticker price of $120,000. Mercedes has good residual value, so therefore the lease prices are lower. It's a car, let's say, that you can get out there and lease, depending on options, whatever it might be, let's say for $1,200 a month. I can buy the car for $120,000, freeze up that money, but I choose not to, because I have other places where I can park $120,000 that's going to give me a return anywhere from 5 to 10% a year, be it real estate, stock market, mutual funds, whatever it might be, right? So that's out the window right there, because writing a check for it makes no damn sense, because it's a depreciating asset, right? So $1,200 a month for 36 months. I am going to spend, over the life of the lease of this car, in 3 years, I'm going to spend $43,000 on this particular vehicle, right? If I were to buy it for $120,000, in 3 years' time, that car is probably going to be worth half, right? Which is $60,000. See the difference? So, and on top of that, I'm not even looking about what this car is going to be worth. Normally, when you buy a car, let's say it doesn't make sense to park $120,000, I'm going to say, oh, take a loan. Car loans are usually 5 years. 120,000 divided by 60. I'm now paying, again, I'm not including interest, none of that stuff. I'm doing rough math. I am now paying $2,000 a month for that car. I will own it in 5 years. What is it going to be worth in 5 years is a whole different question. So let's say in 3 years, if I decide to change this car at $2,000 a month, I have paid off $72,000 versus $43,000. It's a $30,000 difference. It's huge. This is why I lease my cars, and this is my smart way of getting around that. I'm not the guy to keep a car for 10 years. Now, if you keep this car for a prolonged amount of time, or take that same exact car and trade it in, I did the math one time with my father-in-law, because he's a big fan of buying cars. He kept buying the same car over and over. On the 5th car, it started to make sense, 20-some years later, right? So again, it's the same exact thing. Look at watches as you would look at buying cars. Do it wisely. There are tips and tricks to do that. I've made plenty of videos on that, and you'll be perfectly fine there. Well, guys, this is it for this Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed today's video. As always, don't forget to submit your questions to romansharf@luxurybazaar.com. I tend to miss the questions that you guys put in the comments, as there are too many comments to follow at this point. Also, a reminder to submit your videos in regards to your watches, hopefully along with a story of why that particular watch is your favorite and what the story behind it is. Real people, real watches, real stories can only be possible by real people, and real stories and real watches. If we want to keep that show alive, I do need those submissions. Ian asked me to pop this in here once again, and I'm doing as he asked. Other than that, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, right down there, go ahead, hit the subscribe button.
Do it! Do it!
And share this video with your friends, because this is what helps my channel grow organically. And other than that, I'll see you guys next Tuesday.